Russia and Ukraine will be number 9. I'm not going to be caught or pulled into some BBC, fake news questioning. It's peace that is our priority.
I'm not sure asking whether Russia's a threat is fake news.
Sometimes the best way to win an argument is to let your opponent defeat themselves. Today we're watching former Trump aide Sebastian Gorka walk into the most simple, elegant trap a BBC host could set, leading to one of the most spectacular meltdowns you'll ever see. If you enjoy watching political bullies get exposed, show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. Now, let's watch this together, and then I'll give my 2 cents at the end.
The feelings I have on any issue regarding national security.
Okay, let's talk about the national security strategy, which was published by the US administration. We have a similar document here, actually, which is the Strategic Defence Review. And in that, it concluded that Russia was an immediate and pressing threat. Is that view shared by the US?
Well, the new document, and I really strongly recommend all of your viewers have a look at it. It's a short document. It's unclassified. It's on the White House website as of Friday afternoon. It really is, as one of your guests says, it is a dose of reality. It is clear that we wish Europe to prosper. It talks about the very close sympathy, the ties, the historic traditions that bind us together across the Atlantic, but we will not be taken advantage of. And we are very disturbed that there seems to be a civilizational decline in the states of Europe, whether it's unfettered illegal immigration or, as one of your guests noted, the fact that for far too long, for literally decades, I broke my teeth, I cut my teeth on NATO issues 30 years ago. The nations of Europe just did not take their collective defense seriously, and it was America that had to step into the breach again and again and again. So we wish Europe to flourish. We wish Europe to be safe, but they have to take responsibility for themselves. And we're not going to countenance anymore what we witnessed for decades, which is the free rider complex.
Okay, I will come back to that question about Europe, but my question was about Russia and about, in this document, it talks about establishing strategic stability in Russia. What does that mean in terms of America?
Well, very clearly, we would like to see the end of war. We have seen something that I never would have thought possible in my lifetime, the recrudescence of warfare with tanks, with artillery, with trenches. That should not be the case. We would like that to end. But if that is the case, then Europe needs to be serious as well, not wagging fingers from across the Atlantic, but actually taking responsibility for the idea that major nations like Germany are still buying Russian gas is insanity. And the president warned you about that the last time he was in office. So what it means is that you need to be as serious about national security as we are.
Are you at all concerned that the Kremlin, in response to this document, said that it was largely in line with its own vision?
No, because I've been watching the Kremlin ever since I was an adult, and lots of things come out of the Kremlin that are not true. The words maskirovka and desinformatia come from the Soviet era, and much applies to that use of propaganda today. So no, what comes out of Moscow is not necessarily holy writ in my book.
Just to go back one more time to try and get you to answer the question about whether
you try as much as you like.
I'll try one more time. I'll try one more time. Whether America feels that Russia, as it described in our security document, is an immediate and pressing threat.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on British government documents. I'm here to represent the President of the United States and the National Security Council. The document is very, very clear what we think about threats and what we think about Europe. We wish Europe to be safe and to prosper. We would like it to take the threats to itself more seriously and perhaps stop by actually funding Russia when it has invaded another country by buying its fossil fuels.
So should I draw from that you are looking at Europe and thinking there is more criticism in this document of Europe, some would say, than there is of Russia? Is that fair to conclude? And from your answers that you don't want to answer whether Russia's an immediate threat?
It's not a binary choice. It's a fallacious dichotomy. Your premise of your question is wrong.
Do you think that Russia's a threat?
I'm not going to answer the question, no matter how many times you ask it. The war is the threat. The war is the threat to peace in general. The president is right. Thousands of young Ukrainians and Russians being killed every single week. That's the threat. That's why the president has brought 8 peace treaties to fruition in 8 months. As he said just yesterday, Russia and Ukraine will be number 9. I'm not going to be caught or pulled into some BBC, fake news questioning. It's peace that is our priority.
I'm not sure asking whether Russia's a threat is fake news, because if you look at the 2017 document...
I'm not going to make you happy. I'm here to represent what we have stated in the document, not to make you happy. It's a strange thing to believe that we work for you. I do not work for the BBC. If you look at what you did to the footage of the president's speech on January the 6th, I know what the BBC really is.
Okay, I'm well aware you don't work for us. In the 2017 document, the National Security Strategy, there was criticism of Russia in that document, saying that actually Russia's engaged in subversion and aggression. There's none of that kind of language.
You're like a hackneyed broken record. Would you like to move on?
So you don't want to answer that question?
Would you like to move on? You see,
I can't. If you don't want to answer it, I will move on. Now, one of the concerns outlined in the document, which you have raised several times, is about Europe and saying that Europe is facing a civilizational erasure. Can you just explain to the audience what you mean by that?
Well, very simply, when you have unfettered entry by millions of illegals from other parts of the world that don't necessarily share your Judeo-Christian heritage, when you see the rape gangs in the UK, for example, destroy the lives of thousands of young girls and then being protected by local law enforcement because they're afraid of being deemed racist if they investigate those things, then we are very perturbed by what we witness in Europe. So it is clear, if you just look at the birth rates, for example, the civilizational decline across Europe, that no one is even close to the 2.1 replacement rate. So whether it's a lack of sovereignty, whether it's turning a blind eye to the absolute carnage wrought by some communities on your nations and illegal immigration by the truckload. These aren't opinions of the president's administration. These are empirical facts. Europe is in civilizational decline. But the most important part of the document, or should be from your perspective, is we wish to see that reversal. But we cannot impose that on you from Washington, D.C. That has to be a decision of the people of Europe. And God bless everyone who voted for Brexit, who said, we wish to have the UK a sovereign nation again. So this isn't opinion, this is fact. Europe is in civilization decline.
Yeah, the document does talk about cultivating resistance.
From the country you wish me to comment on as some kind of, overarching existential threat, well, you will have a problem. Stop buying Russian energy and maybe you'll be a little bit more secure.
The document does talk about cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory within European nations. Does that mean funding certain political parties here? Is that one way of approaching it?
The US government? What lunacy are you quoting? What is that based upon? Funding parties? Where did you get that from?
No, I'm asking what it means by cultivating resistance.
Where did you get that from? You're not asking. You're actually positing. Where did you get that from?
I'm quoting the document.
Funding political parties, that's not in the document.
No, I'm asking that question. Cultivating resistance. What do you mean? Well, I'm asking what you mean by it. Is that what you mean by it?
You're asking whether that means funding parties. Where did you get that from?
I'm asking you a question.
You're making it up. I'm
not making it up. I'm asking a question. It's not a fact. I'm asking a question.
No. Does it mean funding parties is made from whole cloth? That is classic BBC hackery.
What does cultivating... Well, what's the answer to my question? What does cultivating resistance mean?
That's not the question you asked. You posited that we will fund political parties.
No, I asked you a question.
Why did you make that up?
Why won't you answer the question?
That's not the question you asked. Now
I said, what do you mean by cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory?
Doesn't mean funding political parties. Where did you get that from?
I'm asking whether that is one way of doing it. Is that what you're suggesting?
What editor told you to say that?
No editor told me to say that. Just, will you answer the question?
Because it's not in the document. It's not in the document, so where did you get it from?
What does cultivating resistance to Europeans' current trajectory mean?
Why won't you answer the question about your fake news accusation?
Because I just asked you a question, you don't answer it. But if you're not going to answer it, then we will move on.
And then you change the question. You asked the question, does it mean funding political parties? I'd love to know why you asked that question.
Does it mean that?
Why can't you answer that question? Where you got that fake lie from? Where is that from?
I'm allowed to ask questions. And I was
That's
hoping you were
not-
going to answer
you
it.
asked the question,
I'm allowed to
and
ask the
then you
question.
Then you changed it. Why are you changing the question?
I'm allowed to ask a question, but you don't want to answer the question of what
No,
cultivating resistance means.
You are committing fake news libel.
I'll bring in the panel, and then I will come back to you. Polly.
Wow. Just wow. Let's quickly break down the tactical genius of what we just witnessed. Gorka came in hot, using the classic MAGA playbook. Attack the media, call them fake news, and create a hostile environment where you control the terms of the debate. He wasn't there for a conversation. He was there to perform for his base. And the BBC host let him. She didn't get into a shouting match. She just calmly absorbed the attacks and waited. She let Gorka deliver his entire pre-canned monologue on the civilizational decline of Europe. And then she sprung the trap. It wasn't an accusation, it was a simple question of clarification about Gorka's own document. What does cultivating resistance mean? That's when the meltdown started. Gorka knew he couldn't answer that question honestly without sounding like an extremist. So he did the only thing he could. He grabbed onto the host's throwaway example, funding parties, and pretended that was the fake news lie. It was a desperate, transparent act of deflection. From that point on, the interview was over. The host didn't even need to press him. All she had to do was calmly repeat the question while Gorka descended into a rage-filled loop of his own making. Gorka exposed himself. The host just held the camera steady while it happened. That wasn't an interview. It was a psychological autopsy. So, what do you think? What was the most cringeworthy moment of that entire exchange? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons for more. Also, don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching.